Alrighty, well, I think I kind of got Restream Chat up and running. It's always a pain to kind of switch it over. Let me just do one more quick check. Let me log in here real quick. 1, 2, oh, okay, it's only 3. Okay, well, that should be fine then. So, hey everybody, don't have an agenda today. Let's make some stuff in ZBrush. Alright, ZBrush, how does it work? I guess I can look through here and see if there's anything fun I want to check out here. We were messing around with this latest thing. I guess if I wanted to take this to final, go in here, turn all this off. This was, I ended up rendering this as a turnaround and key shot. Let me see if I can find that. Guess I can go to my Twitter page here. Where's me? Where's my stuff? Okay, yeah, this thing. So basically, just took it in the key shot real quick and did a just rendered it in the round. Just using polypaint. If I was to go into like Arnold or V-Ray or something like that externally, what I would end up doing first is making sure that, first I'd finish the sculpt off. I guess I can do that. And then I'd go through here and UV everything just to make sure that I could like tile patterns and textures and stuff through this. Also probably finish out this stalactite. So you know what? I guess we can probably finish this out. So let's go ahead and I'm going to delete those leg hairs there. They're not really doing it for me. And I'll go ahead and do some creature sculpt stuff. So let me go and load up Quadro. More run as administrator. Yes, please. Hey, you fool. Let me see. Load this up real quick and open. Just opening up my images here. Reference. It's going to populate some images around my screen real quick. And if you guys want that, actually let me open up some of my stuff here. My usual links. And it's just a cool little reference viewer you can use. It's basically Quadro reference viewer. You can get it for free, and that'll kind of allow you to kind of put some images around. So just looking here at this, there's not a whole lot to go off of. I'm going to see if I can't find. Let's close that off. Some images here. So you got the hairy legs. You've got kind of a millipede or a centipede type body. So just real quickly, I'm just going to do a quick search for centipede. Images here, and let's go ahead and do the tools size large because I'm looking for kind of shell detail. See if there's any kind of cues I can take. Looking for one with, there we go. This will work. Let me see, open in new tab. There we go, that'll work. So kind of yeah, it's almost like a wood shellacked shell. And then these are kind of plasticky rubber. And you know what, we can go with that. Something like that. So let's let this autosave here. If I just want to see her in my scene, since I don't need to see everything in here, so I've got Aang and I've got my star placeholder for the naming. I'm going to go ahead and turn his folder off, and we'll just focus on hers and not the star. So we got the shell here. So I'm going to go ahead and, when we were posing it out, we also split these up. These could have been like nanomesh planes sitting there that you could go and edit and have them all update. But at this point, you're probably doing a little bit of sculpting on all of these. If you wanted to be really frugal, like if this was a giant creature that you wanted to like bake every single one of these down to a single texture, or bake one to a texture on your sheet and then just duplicate it around, that would also be fairly valid. But we're going to just brute force it, and go ahead and lift this out just a little bit here. And these all have subdivision history. Everything on here has subdivision history, so that I can go back through, and like I said before, we can UV it and that stuff. Hey, Stefano. Let's see here. Okay, so do a little bit of sculpting here. So on this front part, looks like in the cartoon, it just looks like almost like a crab shell type thing. So we'll kind of stick with that. And I'm going to go in here with my Damien standard brush and just kind of run an edge right along here, and then I can hold down Alt and I can kind of pull up, and we can just put some cracks in it this way. And we can go ahead and turn off X symmetry. It doesn't need to be symmetrical, obviously, at this point. Here. And so the Damien standard brush, if you pull this around, you'll see it kind of leaves kind of an organic soft divot. If you use more of like an Orbs crack brush, you can get this on Gumroad as well. And go through here, and that'll give you kind of a little bit more of a harsh line. Of course, you can also go up here to your brush. Nope. Hit B for brushes, and in your chisel brushes here, you've got some VDM options. So you can probably drop that intensity down quite a bit. So you've also got some things you can pull through there. These are more suited for play panel work. And also it's got lazy mouse on, so it's a very smooth stroke. And also, if you get a comma key here, you can go into brush. There is the RAM brush. You can give a shot. That'll also give you a few options for like, let's crank that intensity up. Maybe throw a little more of a lazy radius on there. That'll also give you kind of a little panel cut line that you can use. But generally speaking, I'll use my Damien standard brush or my Orbs crack brush to kind of go through here and just kind of put some cracks along the shell. I'm going to kind of do kind of like a primary read along here. And it looks like the belly is of a slightly different color, although I don't know if this is because it's just rendered or has little hash marks, or actually if it has lines running through it. But you know what, we'll run with that. Or what I could do probably, let's do a search for, it's going to start getting gross, centipede belly. I'm going to maybe flip one over here, open in new tab. Yeah, I guess it does have, you know, this is kind of more of a armor plating, and this is kind of more of a little soft underbelly. So, you know, we'll have both these up, kind of eyeballing them. Yes, some creepy reference. And also, like how the arms go into the body here, we can kind of take a cue from where it's just kind of, you know, a skin fold over this way, and then these things kind of go in there. So we can kind of follow that trend here. So we can go through here. If you want to sculpt through your object, turn on transparency with ghost. You can go through here. You can like use your clay brush, your standard brush. You can do a little bit of build up underneath where these arms kind of connect here. Now, because this, if we're treating this belly as like a softer material, we can kind of give it a little bit of a different treatment than up here, where if we're saying this is a, you know, a harder material, you know, maybe we can kind of start the same way. It's like, okay, we'll do a slight build up here, and then maybe we'll go through and maybe give this a little bit more of a harsh fall off. Like so, and maybe go into our clay brush, we'll build up to that ledge here, and then even through here we can go through and just continue kind of, you know, making it look like this was like these cracks were kind of going this way. So it's, again, give you an idea more of like a hard shell treatment along the top, and then on the bottom here we'll go ahead and keep it nice and goopy. If you're running out of resolution, we've already gone through and we've Dynameshed this, and then we ZRemeshed it to get a result, and then we have subdivision history over here, so we can always drop down and give it UVs and do any low-res posing type things we'd want to do. But we can go ahead and hit Control D to continue subdividing. We're not changing the silhouette that much to warrant having to go back into like a Sculptris Pro or a Dynamesh or anything like that. So we'll go through here, and we'll keep this one. We won't put those lines in it necessarily, but we can look at, you know, like our reference and stuff. And we can go, you know what, maybe there is a fold along here that this thing can kind of fit underneath, and we'll go through here and kind of maybe pull this over. So that way, again, on the underside, we're getting more of a goopy feel. And then on the upper side, we're getting more of like a cracked shell, kind of hard armor feel. So again, we'll use our clay brush here and our Damien Standard. We'll go through and just kind of pull this stuff around. And one thing you can do if you want to redistribute this geometry a little bit, you can go here to drop down to like Sculpting level 3 and kind of move this geo around. And then you can try a reproject higher. So it might be a little bit more forgiving, which is under your reproject higher subdiv. And that'll kind of allow you to redistribute that geometry. Probably didn't do much in that case, but just in case you didn't know that option was available to you. Something you can do. I'm also going to drop my Z intensity down. So while we're smoothing this down, it doesn't go too nuts. And you can also use some cloth sculpting brushes. I got these from Zbrush, ZbrushGuides.com. And you can go through here and maybe use like a cloth magic fold soft. And that might also be another way you can go through here and you can kind of use these. Let's turn on transparency with ghost again so we kind of go through our object here. Go through here, and this can be a way to kind of start these transitions here. So we'll get our initial cuts in. And if we ever need to, if we ever feel like, oh, you know what, we're kind of doing some crazy stuff that's just geometry, we're redistributing this geo too much, and it's causing us really kind of stressing our geometry out, it's not a big deal, especially because we haven't like done anything major, like gone through and done a final game res or the final animatable mesh. So at this point, all we'll need to do is just zero mesh and project history. So I think that's what we'll do for this here. So we've got kind of like a little fold here. And then once we get to a certain point where I'm like, okay, this is where I need to pull this stuff around, and we'll go back in and we'll just zero mesh again and then project history. So we'll kind of put some soft folds in here and then maybe clay build up here. And then working in the round, going up here. What I'll usually do to kind of get these straighter lines is use Move Accu. It's just an Accu curve turned on in your Move brush. It just allows you to pull out a little bit finer points and just kind of work your way down that profile. And then you can also go in here and like use a pinch brush to kind of close these up a little bit. There we go. So before I go and reproject, let's make sure I'm looking at my reference here. Anything else I want to do, or anything else I want this to look like? So like if this is an armor shell and this is a goopy belly, maybe this in here would also be a little bit of a softer feel. Let's go back in our magic folds here. It's going to solo mode and kind of go through here, and let's turn off X symmetry. And maybe there's lateral folds around it, so we can kind of maybe try this out. See if that does anything for us. What I'm trying to avoid is doing another round of like this, although, you know, for an orifice, this probably isn't a bad idea. If it's like a little more of a sphincter type muscle, like your eyeball or other stuff, I suppose that could work. But I think I'm going to stick with maybe just following these lines we already have around here. So we'll just go ahead and you can hold down Alt and you can kind of pull up to an edge with your Damien Standard brush, and then you can let go of Alt and you can again put in these these lines here, and we can actually maybe even treat this more like an eyeball this away, kind of like eye bags. And if you go through here and you hold down Alt, you're going to get a little bit more of a harsh transition than I would want. So I'm going to go back into my standard brush here. We'll turn up our lazy radius, maybe crank up our Z intensity a little bit. And let's go through and kind of do this. If you really want to go crazy, you can also go through here as far as like getting that eyeball look. You can go through and you can do like texture XYZ, and you can project a eye bag and pour detail and stuff like that. I don't think we need to go that nuts, but I'm gonna, you know what? I haven't done this in a while. Let's go to my artist reference here. And let's pull up trusty shell, Jordu shell, JORDUSCHELL, and he always has cool stuff to look at, especially eye bags. So I'm going to go through here, double click on some of this work, and so these are all like traditional sculpts and stuff like this. You can kind of zoom in and look at how he handles forms and stuff, and of course he'll always have really cool reference. And the reason I like looking at these is because he's done a lot of problem solving as far as like what reads, instead of going back to you know, let me just get some human reference of some eye bags. You know, you can go and look at, it's realistic, but it's also a little bit stylized. It's a little bit like, you know, he's made some decisions on readability and execution that are really interesting and stuff. So go through here and just kind of follow those lines, just kind of those crisscrossed bags, and that's just kind of going through here and just kind of overlapping that. And I'm not saying that's exactly what we need to do in this case. This is kind of an interesting one. So I'm kind of just, you know, going from like, okay, corner to corner. We can put in some eye bag wrinkles like this, and then we'll kind of fade it out towards the middle. But maybe, yeah, in the corners here, we can kind of bunch up. And again, if you're running out of resolution, just hit Control D. We're not really taxing this geometry as much as we were the other one. So and this side here. And turn up my Z intensity just a little bit on my smooth brush. Now that we're in the higher resolutions, it's not. You can always drop down too if you need to drop down, like so to level 3. Go back up. That'll help you. We'll stick here. And then, of course, we'll go back in, go up to subject level 5, and we'll go in. You can also start poly painting at this stage. I mean, you could. I would probably say start poly painting early, so you make sure your material breakup and everything, your overall composition is reading. But certainly, if you're starting to do your final poly paint, or you have enough resolution in your mesh to, you know, do some more detailed poly painting, even if you're not planning on, you know, using poly painting for all the color work you're going to be doing or texture work you're going to be doing, at least you'll have enough resolution there to do that. So let's go ahead and back into our trim dynamic, and we'll soften this transition a little bit. It's a little bit harsh. Boy, it seems like it's been a while since I've done an organic sculpt. I'm a little bit rusty. I'm a little bit all thumbs going through here. I've been in hard surface land for too long, and hell, even just asset creation, I haven't really done a tremendous amount of. So I'm going to go through here, my standard brush. We have lazy radius turned on. I'm going to tap L to turn that off. Then I can go through here and kind of put in some details on the side here. Maybe this could be like kind of semi-irritated skin, or go through here and kind of enhance these folds. You can also go in here with your inflate brush. Instead of using like a clay brush, just go through here with your inflate and use this to kind of increase that contrast between those eye bags. And you can also go back in with your Damien standard brush. And let's drop that Z intensity down a little bit and maybe increase that lazy radius just a slight bit. And then you can go back in here and kind of put in some tertiary reeds. So you've got your primary wrinkles already. You can go and enhance those a bit. And then on top of those, you can kind of feather in some I'm not much of a creature sculptor per se. I don't get a whole lot of practice on that. But you know what? We'll make do. If you don't do it, you're not going to learn. So go in there, make your mistakes, give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, try something different. All right, so you got a little bit of a grosser look that way. And we'll go ahead and refine our face too as we go. That's my ex-girlfriend. Can I know your focal length settings? I don't sculpt in perspective hardly ever, if I'm being honest. If I'm matching a face, what I'll do is, have perspective turned on. You go in here to draw, and you can change it to like, I was shooting this with a 35mm camera, so I can go through and use that information to dial in my reference. But while I'm just sculpting, I just have this off. So no focal length, just orthographic. Here we go. And I can bring up some face reference too. But let's resolve this. So when you're looking at this is just like a void. It's just black. Even with, I don't know if I have the version with like different, I guess I do. Yeah, just a void around the head here. So, yeah, okay, I guess it does have more lateral wrinkles, which we're fine. We're fine with that. So we'll go back in here, and I'm going to keep this, I guess, fairly simple. Maybe it'll just be like a membrane, kind of stretching out. Let's go ahead and we'll do Control D once. I'm going to push this back just a bit. Again, just increasing that contrast around the face. And then we can have maybe just, excuse me, slight indentations here. Let's go into transparency and ghost turned on again. Or, you know what, if that's a kind of a pain, just turn on solo mode. And you know what? This is also a bit much. We have a whole lot of geometry back here we don't really need. So let's turn on transparency. We don't even need to do that. Let's go through here. I'm going to mask around her head where I know that geometry is going to be. So this is all I really need right here. And maybe, you know what, we can also go in here to like masking, grow mask. Kind of grow that out and then hold down Control Alt, and so you can keep growing and then blurring or sharpening your mask. And that's just Control Alt tapping on here or going here to sharpen mask. So now we have this, and I just need this area right here. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to say delete lower. Under edge loop, we're going to edge loop mask border, Control Shift tap, geometry modify topology, delete hidden, zero mesher half, tap to size down to 0, and then just get some nicer geometry. Let's do this a couple times. Still, we can, it's still a low res subdivision, but we can go through here and we can say, yeah, let's Q mesh polygroup all. Let's pull this back, and then we'll do a display properties flip. It's way down here at the bottom. So that way, we have, it's still a kind of a thin plane, which I don't like. So I'm going to mask this here. You can just go into move brush and just Control tap this. We'll go ahead and reset this to camera, and then hold down Alt and just kind of, oops. Let's turn on LSIM, and we will scale it back to like a straight line here. There we go. So again, I don't care too much about this. And then we can even go in here to like insert multiple edge loops, and let's say same or keep polygroup here. There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and do a crease PG. It's under your geometry crease menu, and we're going to hit Control D. And then as I subdivide this, it'll maintain that edge loop a little bit better. We still looks like we need to go through here, and we'll just pull this forward a bit and then back a bit, just because this is, I want it sitting, you know, if we wanted to 3D print this later, I want to make sure all this stuff is fairly watertight. So we'll go through here and we'll ensure that this thing is wrapped all the way around here. If our head's coming through, I guess that'll work. So redo this geometry a little bit. We'll subdivide this up just a bit and just put a little indication in the corners that, you know, there's a membrane kind of being pulled through here on the corners. On our standard brush here, maybe smooth this out. And we're working at slightly lower intensity, so I'm going to drop the intensity on my standard brush there. There we go, something like this. Eesh. Okay, moving right along. So we got that shell here. Where did my reference go? There it is. So we're kind of eyeballing this. So going back through, we'll go into our Damien standard brush and it's kind of, again, just putting in some lines through here and towards the back. We can kind of dent it up too. I wonder if there's a good way to, you know what, let's try this. Let's go into our comma key here. We do have our, it's going to be semi-stylized LMNOP. Can I spell? EFN, Orba. So there might be some like hammer, flatten edge, hammered metal might work. Try that. Let's switch the stroke out. Maybe a spray stroke or maybe a drag dot. Nah, let's try this. Let's go into our comma key here. Brush, trim. There's a smooth border. And we're going to use maybe a crusty alpha. Because normally what I do with a trim smooth border is put on like a this type of alpha. And you can go through here and you can like make, you know, very precise sharp angles and break this up like a rock. However, I'm wondering if I can use this to maybe, with a little bit of a different alpha treatment, go in here with, I don't know, something like a bit of a softer alpha maybe. Ooh, this one over here. Let's see if we can't put a little, just kind of hammer in some imperfections along the back here. I guess that alpha doesn't really do much. And we're just on a freehand stroke with a trim smooth border. That kind of flattens it out in a kind of an organic-ish way. If I just hold down very light pressure, it actually does a more slightly better job on the organic side of things. And then if I want to go back through here with my trim dynamic and go through and kind of round these transitions out too. This is, at this scale, if we're looking at centipede reference, I wouldn't really hold this border that sharply. It'd be a little bit more of a fall off here. So we'll maintain this nice dent over here. And probably looking through this now, there's no reason I should have gone to subdivisions this early. I could still be in the Dynamesh phase and then ZRemesh later. But again, we can always ZRemesh at any time. There's no law against it. And so that's probably what we'll end up doing. So I got this here, and this can stay, like it's got some dings in it. Go and round some of these out with my trim dynamic. And it, you know, usually your trim dynamic, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to use this to cut in sharp bevels. But you can also use it to round out corners. And then H polish, we go in here to our H polish. This is where, once you have edges, you can go through here and you can kind of polish out some of these things. So kind of give it back a little bit more of its hard surface look. You can also throw like a square alpha on here if you want to maintain your edges a little bit more. But in this case, I don't think we need to do that. And through here, we can maybe reinforce this idea. Let's go through here with our pinch brush. Kind of close up some of these gaps. It's not so bubbly. And trim dynamic back in here. I don't usually live stream this type of content either because I find it kind of tedious, not only to do but to watch, I would imagine. So I'll leave it up to you if you guys want to see, hey Antonella, if you want to see anything in particular or any sort of problem solving in ZBrush. I'm open to that too. I can always do this on my own time. Again, not particularly engaging. Basically going in here and just putting in some major cuts along here, along the back here. And we're just, I mean, this is just going to be continued along that back spine area. So what we can do is, again, we're kind of stressing this out along the side. So let's go out of solo mode here. Let's turn on X symmetry back on. One thing I wish I could do is mask this and just see if I can repeat this detail over here, because I'm not too concerned about repeating detail. Along the back, I'm certainly not going to care if I like do mirrored stuff, although it's going to be difficult to do mirrored stuff there. But down here, that's something I would probably want to avoid if I'm going to be putting a big camera. Oops. Down in this area here. So go through here, and instead of doing like clay tubes, I guess we can try clay tubes with a very low intensity. Maybe go up here to our stroke menu, modifiers, roll distance up 5-ish, and kind of use this. Let's turn off X symmetry. Oops. Build up clay tubes. Drops the intensity down. Hey, you know what? Let's just do this. Brush. Reset all brushes. Okay. Clay tubes, which I have under Alt B because it used to be clay buildup. Drop this down. Stroke. Roll distance 5. Intensity down. And you know, I guess we can keep. You can try just getting rid of that alpha if you want. Just a slightly softer fall off. You can use this to kind of build up. You know what? We can put on maybe a circle alpha. Still maintain some of that build up edge, but so let's go up here and let's turn X symmetry back on, and I guess we'll key out. We'll go to clay brush here, transparency, ghosts, and again we're going to do a little bit of a transition into the shell. So we'll build that up, and then standard brush. Refine this edge just a bit, crank that Z intensity back up. Go in here with our move acu. And then back in our Damien standard. And at this point, we can go ahead and turn X symmetry off. And now we're just putting in these kind of cracks here. And just one more, real quickly. Clay brush, clay brush, clay brush, clay, blah, 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 blah. You know, if this has to rotate, I guess I don't mind that. We'll keep it higher on the bottom end if it's rotating it around. I guess from a physical standpoint, it might make more sense that this is more coming down more often, that this would be down further, but I also don't mind the look of it being a little higher on the lower end. So go through here, again, standard brush, as we do. And this is more of that armor shell. So back into our trim dynamic. And here we are kind of suffering from poly distribution. So we'll go through and we'll redistribute on the top and the bottom, I suppose. Or however, 173 is not bad. That's not too terrible. So now we can go through here and just subdivide. Maybe we can get away on the top one, not having to redo that. And if you want just kind of like miscellaneous scars and ticks as things been, maybe not necessarily in some battles, but certainly like, you know, rummaging around this cave and scraping up against stone walls and stuff. You can go through here and just put in some storytelling detail if it goes head first a lot, or it probably, I don't know if it'll get too scraped in here because its arms are kind of always out, but maybe on the back end rub it against these plates and they'll have a little bit more damage and wear back here. Anything that doesn't break the silhouette, also consider maybe doing in the texture. If you're going to take this into something else, you know, you can always just spray. So speaking of, you can also spray this kind of damage on there as well. You could also spray eye bag wrinkles if you wanted to as well, give it kind of a leathery look. But since it's so big, in our case, probably not worth it. But if you're doing like fine detail stuff, you can certainly do that. This is Zbrush. It is quite a cute creature. This is Ko, yeah. So this is yoink. We're basically recreating this whole scene. If you want to see the making of this up to this point, so here we've got, you know, all this in here plus our little avatar in here as well. You can go through. Let's see if I can Pearl here. You can go through the backlog. It's kind of split in between two parts, two sections right now. So on my YouTube channel here, my latest live streams, actually it's right here. So uploads, here's all the live streams, the past live streams. We did some Westworld stuff. Oh, you know what? I go back to that Westworld thing. But you can also go here to playlists and gotta go to the created playlists. And there is a live stream full episodes. So back through here, you can go through and check out the whole backlog. This should be a lot of them. And then also on Pixologic's channel, which is what I'm streaming right now. If you want to see my older videos through this, you can also check this out. Some videos, some content for you. Cool. Yeah. Hopefully I have a happy stream. You can see I changed my matte cap. So usually what I'll do is I'll go in here to my matte caps and I'll be like matte cap gray is my startup material. It's just a nice on the eyes, easy on the eyes type of material, and it gives you enough information. If you want to kind of pop these edges a little bit, you can also try maybe a matte cap pearl or maybe a green metallic, kind of give it a different view. If you want to test lighting, go down here to your basic materials here. You can go into our material settings for a minute. Underneath modifiers, you can, if you are coloring on this, you can crank up the diffuse if you want to. Also the specular if you want to kind of make it shinier or not. In this case, maybe, yeah, because the end result of this is going to be kind of a shiny material. You can also go in here to your lighting, and you can bump down these lights if you want to as well. But this will probably keep it like 0.85 is fine, and we'll just drop that diffuse curve down just a bit. And then if we go up here to our light menu here, you can take this and you can kind of make sure that, especially the lighting in your scene is going to be like this, making sure the details that you're catching, or you know, however your light is going to be, you can actually pull in multiple lights if you want to as well. But if you're going to end up lighting something like this, just make sure you go through and you know, just evaluate where you're putting your information so that it works. There's no surprises. And I keep losing my other, oh, there it is. Belly reference, open in new tab. Image new tab. There we go. Yeah, so something like that. But we can also, and these matte caps don't inherit any dynamic lighting, it's baked in. If you want more information on that, I have some of that on my YouTube image. Just do matte cap, or what do we call it? We call it light cap. Do a search for that, and that'll tell you how to make your own matte caps using lighting, baked in lighting and material properties and stuff like that. I'm just going to put two main, kind of like almost like a whale belly down here. Let's turn off X symmetry and we'll just put one through here And then go back with our clay brush and maybe our pinch brush a little bit. We'll pull that back. All right, I think I'm getting a slightly better feel. My heavy-handedness is dissipating a little bit. So now I'm starting to get it a little bit more. So this belly over here again is going to be a little less armory, more goopy. So we're going to kind of inform that by just going through here and knocking down those edges with our trim dynamic, and then maybe using our smooth brush to soften that transition out. And then we'll go through here and we'll just kind of round that corner with some of this belly detail here. And while you're putting this on here, depending on how you're going to compose the shot, you can also use this to kind of draw the eye to the face. It's basically just putting in a bunch of vectors going, hey, look here, look here, look here, follow these lines, so using all that to kind of give the viewer a hint as to, you can also do that like with contrast and lighting and color, and it won't be subtle as far as like giving them a hint of where to look necessarily, but all right, feeling a little bit better now. Plus it was early morning. How am I supposed to be expected to be at my full creative prowess at 6 a.m.? Come on, give me a break. We'll go through here and we'll kind of bubble this up just a little bit. And like I said, these can be kind of skin folds. Now we are really kind of taxing this geometry here, so let's go ahead and fully tax it, and then we'll go through and redistribute this geometry. So go through here with our pinch and then our clay brush and kind of build up maybe a little bit of a it's kind of like a cloth fold. It's like a half lock fold a little bit. Go back in. Once you dig it in, you go back with your clay brush and build it back out, and use that kind of back and forth, whether it's a Damien standard or standard brush or Orbs crack or whatever. It's basically just a process of digging in this detail here and then going back in with your clay brush and kind of increasing that contrast, or your inflate brush if you want to be even more subtle about it. And that'll give you kind of that folded look. Then you can also, let's turn down our smooth brush. Now my smooth brush is going to be a little different than yours underneath brushes here. If we go down here to the smooth brush modifiers, I have weighted smooth mode set to 1 automatically. That's smooth stronger in your world, so you would have to load that up manually. I have that saved over my brush data presets so that it does it automatically. That's just how I prefer. Gives me a little bit more range on my smooth brushing. So you'll see me probably go into that Z intensity a little bit more often than if you're using the defaults there. Just kind of again spiraling this transition a bit. And then we'll just work our way back. You know what, let's do a little bit more of this work. So we got some hairy legs, and by that I mean kind of up around here it looks like it's very, very furry up around these legs here. I'm still going to go for, I'm not going for like a hyper real hair necessarily. So these are, I'm guessing these are kind of just pods, and these might actually be placeholder pods that we don't necessarily need. Let me see, so this one here, let's hit W and we'll just kind of move these out of the way. Because here's like, you know, we don't even really need these. If I'm going to be just masking this and adding FiberMesh, I don't need those necessarily to help me out here, so I'm just going to delete those out of our scene. So we have these, and these are just going to be kind of gross little leg things here. And if you want to, you can split these up into their separate component parts. They should all be, while we were posing, we made these individual polygroups. We can go through here and just like control tap and mask by separate polygroups and do what we need to do. If you want to sculpt these separately, what we can do is we can go in here to like auto groups, and you know what, I think if I can just hit, yeah, I can just hit mirror and weld, it's still mirrored technically, which is good. We'll keep that, and then we can go through here, and you know what, let's do this. Let's take all these top pieces here, and we'll say subtool split, and then all these pieces here, we'll say split hidden, and these ones here, we'll just go leg piece by leg piece. We'll split those off. Now these are dynamically subdivided, so if I do D and Shift D, that's turning on dynamic subdivision just to give me a preview. If I want to do real sculpting, I'm just going to say apply, and that's all under here underneath your geometry menu. Geometry, dynamic subdiv, and just apply. So now I have real subdivisions. So now we can go through here, we can just refine this look. It should be fairly easy. It's basically, we're doing like a segmented leg here. So just going through here and reinforcing this shape. Now you could go through here and you could do like hard surface modeling to get this shape even better, more precise. But in our case, you know what? I think we're fine. If you're having a little bit of problem like squeezing in here, just hold down Control Shift and isolate it by that poly group. And that's just Control Shift tapping. Obviously, move it out of the way, and then you know, make your life easier. You can also split it into its own subtool if you want, but that would be really bloating our subtool size, or subtool count. Not a huge deal for me. It seems organized, and I don't really jump over there. You see, I Alt tap to, you know, pick what I want to sculpt on. I don't go over here in the subtool menu and scoot around there too often. If I can't help it, it's kind of tedious to do that. So, got this here, and then now we need to like integrate how these legs are going to work. And let's, oh, are these all part of one piece? Yes, they are. Well, let's fix that. I'm going to grab all these belly pieces here. I'm going to split these off. If you're working on a machine that has somewhat low specs, or you know what, this is good. Let's see. It's not going to let me split if these have subdivision history, so what I'm going to do is say delete lower, and then I can say split hidden, and then to get my subdivision history back, just hit reconstruct. But if you're working on a kind of a min-spec PC, or even a PC that's fairly beefy, let me see. What am I using? I'm using the, I have a 3970X Ryzen Threadripper and 64 gig of RAM. And if you like the hardware side of things, I can point you. Oh, there's the other one. Man, I'm having a hard time shuffling my windows today. Yoink. Say workstation here. So this is the updated
4250.
Oops. This is the updated version of my machine. I've basically stepped through every generation of Threadripper. Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. Gen 3 far and away like butter. So let's hold down Alt and tap our belly here, and we'll reconstruct. But ZBrush specifically is a very CPU RAM heavy software. But what you can do if you have to be a little bit more frugal or just good common sense, is to go ahead and split these things up into individual, like if you have, it's better to have one subtool at 4 million polygons than one subtool at 24 million polygons. So if you can, like this, I can split every single one of these belly pieces up into its own subtool and then subdivide it up, and then each one of those can be fairly high, and ZBrush will still be fairly responsive and undos will be responsive, as opposed to what I have now, which is all these belly pieces in here, and it's, you know, it's a 2 million polygons. It's not a huge deal. 2 million's fine. ZBrush can handle that, no problem. But if you start getting crazier with your subdivision, stuff like that, and this goes into the millions or severals of millions, there's something to consider. So again, this is going to be kind of a belly transition. This leg's a little bit awkward as far as like where our belly masses are and how it integrates, and at this point I might consider like, do I really care that much? Or maybe, you know, this kind of just fits in between a couple folds here. So let's go into our transparency ghost, and I'm just going to say, let's crank up our lazy radius. Yeah, lazy radius here. So I'm just going to put like a fold in here, maybe a crisscrossing fold. One thing I can do is I can go in here to our auto masking and turn on topological. So now when I pull on this side, it's going to leave that other side alone. So now I can pull this one underneath and pull this one over and kind of get that look fairly quickly, even though it's all one subtool. If they were different polygroups, I could also use mask by polygroup up at 100, just above there. But I think that'll work just fine. So, transparency ghost, got kind of these things folding. And you know what? I can just kind of lean into that just a little bit. So I'm going to say, clay brush this bad boy around. And then we'll can continue this direction here. And these, this isn't global, so I'd have to go in here and turn on topological for this if I was so inclined to do that for my standard brush. But in this case, I'm just going to leave that alone. And I can also just isolate this too. Just Control-Shift-Tap it, and then go through here and move things around as needed. And then right along here, we'll do another. And that should take care of our leg integration needs. Let's go into solo mode here, and we'll just dig this out, pump this up, pump up the jam. There we go. Cool. Yes. How do you choose themes for modeling on stream? I remember you were going to make something from Warhammer 40K. Do you have any plans? Don't forget StarCraft. The Zergs are so cute. I really don't have. I wish I had a better plan for my streams or a theme. Or usually what I'll do is like if whatever I'm watching on TV is usually what I'll do. Unfortunately, right now I already finished Avatar. Legend of Korra isn't coming out for Netflix until like mid-August, I want to say, like August 14th. So it'll be a little while before I watch that. So currently what I'm watching is like Gone in the Dark, Golden State Killer documentary, and like Perry Mason. I don't know if I want to sculpt anything from either of those shows. So we'll stick with this for now until I get back into a, you know, a TV watching schedule that's more appropriate. That's usually what I end up doing. Like I was watching Westworld season 3, and I sculpted some Westworld stuff, and then I watch Avatar, so I sculpted some Avatar stuff. So whatever I happen to be into at that moment, that's what I'm doing. So one thing we have is, you know what? This isn't perfectly symmetrical. I suppose I could make it symmetrical-ish. But these, you know what, I'm going to sculpt these legs symmetrically, and then I'm going to move them into place, because this should actually be up here and higher, and it's not terribly convincing as far as like a pose goes. So we'll go ahead and turn all these belly purses back on. There you go. So got some leg integration going on this side, and we'll focus back on these. And you know, just looking at my reference, these are fairly, like these segmented legs are fairly plain. There's not a lot going on there. In fact, a lot of it just handled in like the color and the translucency, which we can do in ZBrush. Or if we want to throw this in the keyshot, or like I said before, V-Ray or Arnold or whatever later, we can certainly do that. But for now, I guess I'll kind of keep these simple, which would also be nice because it'll contrast against kind of the detail we're putting in here. If we could just have a very simple, kind of a gummy standard brush, see intensity. Oh, you know what? Again, apply, or if you don't want to do that, if you want to do like Shift D, like, okay, there's my actual geometry I'm looking at, and then just Control D. That'll go through and subdivide up for you. Or you can go to your geometry menu and just hit that divide button, and that'll give you the same result. So I'm going through here, and again, we're just going to kind of refine the interaction between these little segments here, kind of put a little bit of contrast between them. Same thing here. And we might just call it a day. There's a few kind of gross things we could add to this. We'll use our snake hook brush for that. But essentially like little spiny spikes we can put on. That'll kind of give you, number one, it's kind of what they have. You can kind of see like on cricket legs, and also a little bit here, it's like a little, just a little bit of a thing where it's like if it brushed against you, you know, gives a little gross chill. I shouldn't say that if you have a pet centipede and it's cuddly and you love it. There's nothing wrong with that. I think most people, when you're trying to tap into that psyche, you're trying to message a feel. This is one of those shapes. Like if you just saw a silhouette. Speaking of, well, how we can just do this. You saw a silhouette of this kind of hanging from your ceiling. The reptile part of your brain would go, ooh, that's dangerous. That seems poisonous. That seems creepy crawly. Do not like. Generally speaking, human beings just kind of react to that, like little spindly legs and little snaky bodies. You know, so when you get into creature design stuff, that's why things like the face hugger and Alien and stuff is such a good design, because it's supposed to message exactly that, like a spidery, snaky type thing that just puts on all those alarm triggers in your brain from the reptile part of your brain, and just it makes you feel that, which is what they're going for. They're going for that kind of creepy, crawly vibe, and the best way to do that is to tap into that part of your brain that says, that is creepy, that is crawly, and I do not like, because it could hurt me. And also, you know, when it comes to messaging, kind of that universal messaging, like snakes and spiders mean kind of danger. You know, that's fairly universal. But there, you know, as far as shape language and stuff like that, that could be a little bit more regional. As far as like, you know, these, I think these we're gonna leave alone. We don't really need to do a bubbly transition out here. I can actually like maybe fit these into these a little bit softer pods here. So do we apply? Does that have the actual design? Yeah. So through here, we can maybe, you know, let's go through here and inflate. Kind of just do a little bubbly inflate along here. Kind of make it look like a sheath that these are kind of squeezing into here. And again, these are going to be covered in hair anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about storytelling there. But then over here, this is where we're adding a little bit of that contrast here between these segments. Of course, these are all almost identical legs, so it may have made more sense to go through and totally detail out one leg and then duplicate it back and reconstruct subdivision history. But it didn't take too long. We are working mirrored though, just to kind of save us a little bit of time. Any more kind of weird, creepy stuff I want to do? Because these are almost like gummy bears as far as like how they're treated. So I don't know that we'll go that far. I don't know how giving her gummy legs is going to help any. But one more thing we want to do is, I think, up towards the top and maybe the back, we'll go in here with our BSH snake hook brush, and we'll just kind of pull some spines off of here. So you can kind of go through here and you can just kind of just do it. That'll give you the most control. You can also go through here into your brushes. Nope. Just hit B. And there's, I think there's some chisel stuff in the chisel creature. These are VDM brushes. You want information on that, just do a VDM search. You can go through here and you can actually like add spikes this way. So if you want to go through and just, and these are nice. They have undercuts as well. What direction do they go? They kind of go out, away. Is that going to work? Here. Let me also look at like a cricket leg. Yeah, you know, I guess they do. I don't need, oh, you know what, these little hairs too can kind of be interesting. Maybe we'll kind of lean into that a little bit. Oh, that's cute. Yeah, but basically, and actually they get longer as they go down. Interesting. You know, you learn something new every day. And I guess that could also be dependent on the type. Let's do this. This might give us a little grasshopper leg. Yeah, these are a little bit, this is kind of, these little spikes here. These are very small spikes, so you know, you're thinking about readability and what you're trying to get across here. Yeah, I suppose that could work. And if you wanted to, like, you know, you can also go through here and be like, you know, maybe some little ones to supplement. But that might be a bit much. Maybe over here there's fewer or something like that as it goes down. But you know what? Let's do, maybe I'll do our own custom VDM. Jeez, if I remember how. Just trying to find a good. I guess that'll work. Okay, so one thing you do need to be careful of is these things go in here to backface masking. So when you're pulling through an object, it doesn't go all the way through. And then we can kind of just use this. And these kind of fit closely on there. So what we can do is go out of edit mode and hit Control N to switch. And let's just bring in a plane 3D, edit, make polymesh 3D so we can sculpt on it. And then geometry, let's reconstruct subdivisions all the way back to where we just have a plane. And then we're going to turn off the smooth modifier and we're going to divide this up to get more geometry. So I'm just going to go through here, we'll turn on X symmetry, and I'm just going to pull out using what? I guess using this one. So we're going to kind of steal this VDM brush information as a starting point. So we go through here and it's like, okay, we don't need, I also want to stay away from the edges. So I don't mind the shape. I just don't need it that detailed necessarily. And also maybe a little pointier. So we go through here with our move AcU and just kind of pull that out to a point. And also maybe I don't want it to be this close. I want it to kind of come out a little bit more. So we can drop down to like certain level, maybe 6. Go in here to our hold down Control, mask lasso. I'm just going to pull these polygons. It's kind of out a little bit more. So that's a good starting point. You could also have started from scratch as BSH and then just use the snake hook to kind of just pull geometry out and refine it. But since we had already had a good base, I figured this would be good enough. So if we want to do anything else, if you wanted to go through here and go crazy, like, you know, every single one of these, I want it to be like coming out of a, you know, a piece of skin or something like this, you could definitely do that as well. In our case, we're just kind of adding spikes. So I think we'll be okay just with this. So we'll go through here and okay, let's see if I remember how to do this. Brush, create, FiberMesh, multi-alpha brush. Or you know what we want to do? Maybe let's go in here to our brush C chisel creature and see if we can't hit B. Is that a multi-alpha brush? Is it under alpha? Alpha from mesh. No, that's just going to give me the alpha. So basically, well, one thing you want to do is take the chisel creature brush and clone it off first, and then now it looks like, yeah, now it looks like we got our brush here. So clone off your chisel brush, and then you can delete everything out of there, and then you can say create multi-alpha brush with this one, and it'll replace it, keeping the same setting. So that was a little bit messy, but hey, got the job done. So now we can go through here, and we can use this a little bit cleaned up, a little bit further away from our mesh, and let's go ahead and subdivide this up one, so we can kind of go through here, and then maybe I'll go smaller and then larger. See if that read is too much. I guess it'll be okay. And then you can also go through here and you can modify these down to nubbins if you want, or also go through and add like little spiky hairs, which we may do later, but I think this will be fine as far as just like, let's go grab that creature brush we destroyed. And you can always get that back too. All you got to do is go to brush, reset all brushes, or even having this one selected, just reset this brush back, and you should be fine. Kind of have these lean away a little bit as they go back. And then these ones down here, you know what, maybe they do have just a few. And then we'll go back up here. You know what, we can also pull these out a little bit sharper. So again, going into here, you can use snake hook, but also like your move ACU is pretty good at like just pulling out to a little bit of a sharper point. Again, kind of getting into your reptile part of your brain with sharp, stabby little feet that don't feel good. Okay, so we have this, and now we want to put use these as a basis for our leg hair. So let's go in here, see if we can control this a little bit more. I'm going to go to Subtool, Duplicate, hold down Shift and bent down arrow, and just pop this out of our folder here. So just over here separately, our duplicate. And then we're just going to mask exactly where we want this hair to come from. Let's see, mask. Go back to mask pen. Now these are kind of close, and I also want to keep these as separate polygroups. So I'm going to go through here, I'm going to say auto groups. And of course we'll do another mirror and weld. We'll just say, well, let's go to set level 3, delete lower, delete higher, and then do a quick mirror and weld. Again, these are a duplicate, so I'm not ruining anything. And we're going to use this to kind of capture where our hair is going to go. They're fairly well laid out, so if I wanted to be really specific, I can go through here and just like say where I want the hair to kind of stop generating, and then I can say auto groups, and then again we'll just do a quick geometry modify topology, delete hidden, mirror and weld, and then I can just use these meshes here to kind of determine this is where I want my hair to grow from. And also I probably don't want these caps either, so we'll just do another round of, and the reason I'm not like going in here into select lasso and just being like, oh, let me grab all these, just easier to go through here and just grab an edge, especially when it's concentric and it goes all the way around. Delete hidden, auto groups, mirror and weld, and then just grabbing this geometry here. 1, 2, 3. Geometry modified topology, delete hidden. So these will be our hair growers here. So I can leave this here, I can sculpt underneath it if I need to, and these will just be what controls where my hair is growing from. Now I don't want it double-sided, so you want to make sure underneath display properties you have double turned off, because you don't want a hair to grow out and in. And then, you know what, I'm going to use gravity to my advantage here. So I'm going to kind of rotate my camera so I'm looking at it this way. So when I turn on gravity on my hair, it's going to kind of go in this direction. I can always groom it in that direction, but save ourselves a little bit of time. So down here under FiberMesh, we can turn on preview, and there we go. We got some hair going. Of course, we're going to want to modify this quite a bit. And also, like I said before, if we go up here to this gravity and kind of crank it up, you'll see it starts kind of going down, basically the screen direction. It'll start falling down a little bit. So we can see this a little better. I'm going to take the tip and the base color down to 0 so it's not being controlled or affected by those colors. You can also use poly paint if you wanted to. You know what? You guys might like this. Way back in the day, go in here to FiberMesh here. You can see we did a poly paint of like a, what is that, anteater, and then you grow FiberMesh fur through that, and it'll pick up that anteater hair.
Fur here.
The fur will pick up the poly paint color you have, so you can use that technique. Let's close that wake on thing here. if you have a new lesson ZModeler, well, ZModeler is pretty straightforward. So under here, if you want like basics of ZBrush, and ZModeler is kind of a basic functionality thing, go to the playlists, and then underneath, stupid YouTube, they changed that. New intro to ZBrush, ZBrush for ideation. This like 50 video series, if you go down here to, what? You go down here to, you know what, let's do this. 32, video 32 in this series will take you through the basics of what you need to know as far as like, it kind of, you know, ZModeler does a lot. So there's a lot of functionality in there, but if you know that you wanted to have it be an edge action and then you wanted to do something specific, you start with edges, you look through your options, you look through your modifiers, target modifiers, and you're usually pretty good to go. So we'll turn on preview again, and we'll go up here. So max fibers I can crank down, and it starts looking a little bald. But I'm also going to go in here to coverage and crank that up. I want some nice like yak hair on here. I don't want like real spindly hair. This looks like very thick hair on here. So we're going to kind of stick with that. You're going to see it's kind of flat. However, when I go in here to BPR render, it's going to, let's turn off polyframe here. It's going to give us more of a rounded look. And where that's coming from is when I go to render, you're going to see our BPR settings are causing it to be subdivided twice, so it gets a smoother look. And also it's going to give it 4 sides. Right now it's just like basically polyplane looking because our profile is set to 1. Now you can go through here and you can crank this profile up. So if we want to make it actually round geometry, you can actually see that. However, it's actually drawing that. So if you want it to be more performant and you want it to be round on render, then you would leave this profile at 1 and then just in your render settings say this is how round I want it, and then change the sides up. However, in our case, like if we wanted to 3D print this, well, we'd have to be very careful because this would be very difficult to 3D print. So you'd want to, first of all, you'd want real geometry to look at, so we can change that profile here. Also, if we go up here to our length profile, let me crank that up, that's going to make our hair longer, but you're going to start seeing like, oh, it goes beep, boop, boop, it goes 1, 2, 3. When we render, it's not that bad. It actually smooths it out, and you know what, this light is just in the way. There you go. You can see it's kind of smooth. That's because, again, in the BPR settings, it's saying subdivide twice. Subdivide, subdivide. Or you can also go through here and you can up the segment. So if we go to 6 segments, that's going to double it. And now we have a smoother fall off just with how much geometry it's throwing at us. Now ZBrush can handle quite a bit of geometry. I'm not overly worried about it being like, oh, I better keep profile down for performance reasons. It'll be fine. Again, I'm not worried. Let's go into solo mode here. Yeah, I guess that's right. So let's play around with a few more settings here. Now this is kind of that thick hair, and we can go through and we can kind of clump it to those little clumpy points when we go to groom it. But this is essentially what I'm looking for. So let's play with our max fibers a bit. Maybe give us some more to play with, maybe not that many. And then your coverage down here and your width profile is what's controlling that, kind of the width of that hair. So I'm kind of like, okay, do I want less wide hair but more fibers, or do I want less fibers and more wide hair? Now, if you're going to 3D print this thing, I would err on the side of way less fibers and way more coverage. And in fact, you can even go in here to your width profile and you can just crank this up all the way to the top. That'll give you maximum coverage there. But in our case, I don't know if we need to go that crazy. So we'll drop this coverage down just a bit. Yeah, so for our purposes, maybe about this big, and then crank our max fibers up to kind of compensate. Again, we can go through here and we can groom this. We also have a scale root, so the root itself is kind of flaring out, which is fine. If you don't want that tip to scale, though, you can set that to 1, and now it'll just be like tubes. But I don't mind a little tip scaling. We do have a slight twist. If I go in here and say 0, these are just going to be literally just sprouting. If you twist it way up, as they twist down, it kind of gives you a clumpy look, but not really what I'm going for. So you know what, I'll maybe put in just a tiny bit of a twist. Maybe what I had originally is fine. Again, this is the gravity. So while my camera is this way, I can actually do negative gravity or positive gravity all the way down. That's probably what I'm looking for. And I want to say also, horizontal tangent, vertical tangent, clumps. You can kind of go through here and clump it up, and then maybe do a little clump variance. So before we go in and clump it, we can maybe do that. And you know what? Also, maybe I do want a little more max fibers and a little less coverage. I don't know. You can also put on different materials and stuff like that, but I think this will work okay. Okay, so yeah, let me go through here real quick. And okay, this is the hair we got. It's kind of got a little little southern islands kind of feel to it, but I think that'll work. So now we can start grooming these into place a little bit more. And you know what? When I start grooming these, we're really going to wish we had more fibers. So you know what? I'm going to keep, well, let's keep our gravity this way. I'm going to keep upping these fibers. Okay, I think that'll work. And I can always go through here later and I can shift smooth when I start grooming as well if it's a little bit much, but I think this will work just fine. Also remember, when I was going through here, if I turn my fibers off, each one of these has a different polygroup, and that's important. I do want that. So preview, we like this, hit accept, say yes, and then now this is gonna give us a preview fiber through here so that it will groom a little bit faster. However, it looks like Zbrush may have stopped. Let me give it a second. Got caught up here. Everybody good? Get a little water. Now, generally speaking, if ZBrush crashes, it's not that big a deal. We'll wait here for a second. In the meantime, I'm going to go look at my ZData quick save. What time is it? 7:16 ZTool. Yeah, it saved it. So you can see here in my quick saves, we've got a quick save at 7:10 and then a recovered tool at 7:16. The recovered tool is what we would basically need. So it's safe enough, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, we'll say close program. And then we'll open ZBrush back up. Here's my, I guess, go back in here real quick. Here's my avatar reference here. So now when we go in here to our quick save, we'll have a recovered tool here. Back where we started. So let's see if we can't do like a BG brush groom clumps. There's spike that I think will work. There's also a clumps here. You can also like do brush groom ball. There's blower, what I'm looking for here. Not strong, long. There's hairball. So you can go through here and you can see, oh, it's grabbing all of my hair. Not ideal. Actually, let's go through here and we'll do a quick BPR render and we'll make sure that the hair settings are what we're expecting. There we go. Yeah, so it is kind of this big, thick yak hair look. But we go through here and it's getting all of them. So if we go through here and we do auto masking, we can change this to mask by polygroups up to 100. So now this polygroup here is all one polygroup and I can kind of groom it separately. So we can go through here and we can just grab these hairs here like so. So now, let's see, brush, groom. Let's try groom clumps. I don't do a whole lot of grooming here, and it looks like groom clumps is going to be what we need to kind of make sure these things kind of spike together, or brush, groom, hair spike. Like this is also maybe what we're looking for here. But I also want it to kind of lay against that leg a little bit more. Well, I guess that's not too bad. And again, when we hit accept, it gave us an option to be like, do you want to see the actual fibers that you're working with, or do you want to have a preview so it works a little bit better when you're grooming? And I said, give me the preview. So that's why it looks different than the render. So it basically put the render settings in. And yeah, so let's try something else. Brush, groom, hair toss. This will kind of comb it out, and that tips, or that root seems to really, maybe I should put in some more segments. It seems to really kind of flare out. Let me see if I go in here, FiberMesh mask curve. I'm going to take this, so this is fully masked, this is unmasked. I'm going to take this and kind of pull this in a little bit. So the mask itself, that's going to just make it worse. I was hoping that if I dialed that mask down and less of it was masked. Well, you know why? Because when I did the original, it has hairs kind of growing out the top here as opposed to just out the side and down. So that's what's causing it to want to like kind of balloon out on the tops there. We can also do, there's another option. You can also go through and do hair cards. So, and you can also hold down Control Shift and just tap and isolate these. So you can go through and do hair cards, and then on those hair cards assign a hair texture, and that would make it a little bit more reasonable. If you're going to do game res or engine work, that'd probably be how I would go about doing that. But again, if this is more of a 3D print solution or just like a ZBrush render solution, then I might stick with this. Although, boy, it is a, let's see, brush, groom, hair long. There we go. That seems to be our best bet. You can also turn on X symmetry if you want to. There we go. Now we're cooking with Crisco. Alright, so that's about what I'm looking for as far as like, okay, hair, go generally this direction. And I can also use my move brush. And also don't kind of ignore that other stuff. Let's turn on transparency with ghost so the hair fibers will hopefully ignore the geometry. That doesn't seem to really be our problem. Yeah, maybe it is. Solo seems to be our better result. And then, so we have this, so now we want to pull into like those little clumpy things. So let's try that. Let's do, you know what, let's also do brush groom, hair groom lengthen. So I can kind of pull out along here a little bit too, and we can give ourselves a little bit more length on this hair card here. Again, you can also hold down shift and smooth back if you want to. And then brush groom, maybe spin knot. Oof. Yeah, no. Spike. Let's make it a very small brush, because I just want to grab just a little. You can also probably go through here and polygroup these into sections too. We can like maybe do like select lasso. Control W, or you know what, just select lasso visibility and then go in here to brush groom spike. Or you know what? Yeah, I don't know. You could break it into clumps and then just go by polygroup, or let's just do brush groom. I'm trying to get something that'll bring it together, but not be so destructive on that back end. I guess groom clumps will work. I guess extend to 0 so it renders a little bit faster. Yeah, I guess that'll work. So maybe take your selection tool, and just go through here and just grab little sections to clump those ends together. Sorry, this is boring. If I wanted total control and I wanted to, you know, do this with geometry, I do have some of that on my channel where it's basically, let me grab this whole poly group here, where it's basically just using control, like controlling curves in ZBrush to put kind of tubes along a path. Might be also another option, especially if you're going like the 3D print route. If you don't want to deal with FiberMesh, or you can also convert FiberMesh. It's just geometry, so you can use that as a starting point. This seems to be okay. It's getting me generally what I'm needing. And then we can go through here, even with our move brush. All your brushes still work on these fibers. So you can go through here and you can kind of get these a little closer to that end result here. And also looking at how far these come down, we might pull these back, just kind of wrangle these back just a bit. I also wonder if I do like a brush spin. Let's see if this will work. Slash, smooth, soft clay, spiral, sorry. Let's kind of go along here and kind of just twist this result around just a bit. I'll go through here and we'll kind of smooth this geometry a bit. Yeah, something like that. Might be what we're going for. Cool. The printer won't be able to print this. You'll need to use styling. The most realistic hair I've ever seen came out like this. The hair was modeled with straight lines. Finished model was heated, and the printed lines were laid out as needed. I've 3D printed fibers before. I can show you here. I mean, it was a lot, not quite as crazy as this. It was basically this guy's mustache. So this is the, can I zoom in? I guess not. So very, very fine fibers for the render. And then for the actual 3D print, I just went macaroni noodles with it just to kind of make sure I had that. As far as like the hair stuff you can do, if you don't want to, let's do a hair thing here. If you want to get, you know, you can go through and you can do sculptural hair. You can also go through and do hair like this.
Okay, just got the new,
like this here. You know, this is more, I mean, this will print okay. You know, you could even print it in sections if you wanted to. But this here, yeah, probably not. But we can go through here also. You know what, if I wanted to convert these, let me see if I can't. Yeah, no. This is where I wish I would have gone with, hey, show me the actual geometry, just because I can actually treat that as geometry. Let me see if I can, you know, it's been so long since I've done stuff like this, the BPR settings. I can also maybe convert. Okay, let's do a quick save. And just as a test, let's go to geometry, convert BPR to geo. Okay, here we go. And now we have, this is our actual geo. So we can go through here, we can hold down shift to smooth, or we can go in here to inflate, and we can control these things on like an individual fiber basis if we need to. So that'll come in handy. Not quite there yet. You know, we still want to groom, so I'm going to pull this back to before we did that. And I'm also going to double check our BPR. And yeah, okay. So again, go up here, smooth, like so, and then I can again go through here and do our other stuff that we want to do. So I don't know how exciting that was to watch, but you get the basic idea. So go through here, and then we can fix these plates. Let's do the stalactite. Let's get some reference for that. First of all, the reference I'm pulling from looks like this, so ooh, hard to say what exactly that's supposed to be. Here's the rock wall on the inside, so it's just vaguely rock. So it should be fairly simple. So I'm going to go through here, and right now it's just geometry. So let's go ahead and just immediately say dynamic. It's on, so we'll just hit apply, and then I'm going to go through here and just dynamesh this at a 128 resolution. Seems to be fine. So this is where we can go through here. We can use like our trim dynamic to kind of get rid of these harsh angles, and also this point it comes down to in the actual video. It's fairly pointy. We can maintain that a bit, but it's probably not going to be. Let's hold down shift And let's turn off as my polygroups. So it'll let us, and go into Sculptures Pro. I'm just going to eat that tip off there. You can go through here. This is Sculptures Pro. It'll get rid of geometry while you go. So we can go through here and we can say, okay, trim dynamic. Let's turn Sculptures Pro back off. We can reDynamesh. And also go back to maybe that trim smooth border. So back in here in our brush. I think I reset all brushes when I did this. I'm going to go back in and grab it. Trim. Smooth border. Throw in a square alpha, and we can use this. You can hold down Alt or let go of Alt, and you can kind of eat away at surfaces. Give it a rocky texture. Now, cave stalactites that haven't been handled should probably have a pretty goopy look, so we may go into like our cement brushes or stuff like that to kind of give it a almost like a melted candle type look, but we're just kind of breaking up the surface right now, so I think trim smooth border should work just fine. And again, you can hold down Alt and then let go of Alt. You can like pull up here, and now we've got kind of a rockier surface here. I want to say there's some rock sculpting hints and tips on the Zbrush Summit 2019, where they did the Lion King, all those sculpted rocks they did for the live action, quote unquote, even though it's really just CG Lion King. Go through here, and okay, so we got this pretty much broken up. So we'll go ahead and reDynamesh, and then I want to say under like brush, soft clay or soft concrete, you can go through here, and you can kind of use this to kind of bubble up. Let's turn off lazy mouse here. Kind of go through here and give it a, this is kind of a, it's kind of a cool effect, huh? That's one way you can do it, and also you can swap out this alpha if you don't want it quite so crazy. So this will kind of give you a melted wax look. You just kind of blob it and then blob it out, and that'll give you kind of a melted wax flowing over rock, which over 100 million years of, I don't know how long, if that's necessarily how long, but basically, water dripping from a ceiling for millions of years or however long, going through and kind of smoothing out those channels. So you've got, and again, we're stressing this geometry quite a bit, so you can go through and just reDynamesh. We haven't ZRemesh or anything. And on something like this, maybe we don't have to necessarily ZRemesh. I'll leave it up to you. But again, we're just kind of going through and giving it a little bit of a softer overall look. And let's do this too. I hate flying blind. Stalactites is what I'm looking for. Images, and again, we'll go in here to tools, size large, and we'll look and see if there's a good example of, boy, these are super goopy, aren't they? I guess that's a it's a video game. I guess we could match something like these. I'm kind of looking for, yeah, these are almost just like folds. Again, not a bad thing. You know what, sometimes I have more luck, because this large is good for surface treatment. Let's say any size. Let's see if we can't get a... Yeah, these look quite a bit different than the reference images I'm looking at. It's almost like the reference images I'm looking at are not even like a cave formation. It's almost like just a jagged, just a rock that kind of grows out of the ceiling. Which, maybe they did that for speed purposes, just drawing it. You know what? I'll have some of this stuff up just for surface treatment. But boy, it gets noisy, doesn't it? Actually, I like the stalactites better. You know what? Let's do that. Or mites. we'll play around with. Yeah, these are a little bit more what I was expecting. Well, you know what? Let's just wing it. Let's see here. Michael just went to Penn's Cave last week here in Pennsylvania. Lots of different types of stalactites. First time in this sort of environment, and it was by boat. Oh, that sounds really fun. I need to, my wife has a bunch of family up in Pennsylvania. We're supposed to go to, Harrisburg, I guess like where Hershey is. We never made it up there. One day. I'm just basically going through with this soft concrete and just kind of wrapping. It's Dynamesh. You know what? You can also do like a polish by features. Since there's no features on here, there's no creasing or polygroups on here. I mean, I guess you could make polygroups if you wanted to, but it's just kind of undulating this brush down and kind of going big here to maybe smaller, and it's just going to kind of wrap. Your water is going to take the path of least resistance, and it might do it in kind of an interesting shape. So we can kind of use this soft concrete with just a little alpha here to go through and bloop, 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 give us that cavey type of look. And does it look exactly like a stalactite you might see? No. But like Mike says, there's lots of different kinds. So what that tells me is, hey, listen, I saw this look just like this in a cave once. You haven't seen it. It's in one town over. But as long as it messages correctly and it's like, yeah, it looks vaguely like a stalactite that I might see, that's good enough, As long as it's not messaging anything that's bizarre or makes people think like, what is that? Then I think you're pretty golden. Let's go ahead and alleviate some of this here. Might have gotten a weird calcium buildup over here on this side. A little bit more tumory. We can also, we can stretch this down. So we can take this and just do an overall stretch, or even go in here with our move brush or move acu, and we can kind of get this into what we need. Now, if you did want to do like severe overlaps, like with this stuff, and really kind of make this geometry overlap with one another, that's where you would have to go in with a ZRemesher result. So for us, let's do this. Let's hold down Control Shift. Let's do this. Control Tap this point in history, and then we're going to Control Shift. We're going to trim off this top piece here. Control Shift Tap, delete hidden. So now that point in history is still stored as geometry information. So what I can do is I can say ZRemesh depth size down quite a bit. ZRemesher target polygon count of 5 is fine, and we're just going to ZRemesh this result to give us real geometry, not real geometry, this is real geometry, but give us a little bit nicer geometry that has the primary reads that we want, and then we can go back in and again just start really overlapping this geo. Of course, you can keep going down as much as you want. You can say like half ZRemesher and just keep continuing down, but this is plenty low. So we do have that point in history we can snap back to. So we're going to go down here to project, and we can always project all back. So we have this one here, and we have our history. So now what I'm going to do is hit Control D, which is subdivide, and then just do project history, and then Control D to subdivide, project history. Although I don't like working on one-sided meshes. So let's go all the way back here. I'm going to cap this off. We're going to say close it's convex hole. We don't need a bunch of geometry up here. So we have two things here. I'm going to go ahead and do a crease PG under your crease menu. So as I subdivide, it'll keep that line sharp. And then I'm just going to isolate this one, project history. Control D, isolate this polygroup again, project history. Control D, isolate, project. Control Shift Tab to bring everything back. Control D, isolate, project. And now I have all my details back on ZRemesh geometry. This is just garbage, whatever. I don't really need to see that. And now I have that ready to go. So now I can go through here, and it's not Dynamesh anymore. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And then I can go through here, and we can really start kind of digging in if we want to increase the contrast between some of this stuff, and some of this is like pretty primary too. So go through here and just kind of do this. And then now, because if you go through and you do this and you Dynamesh it, it's just going to close those transitions back up, right? However, if you do this and then you like mask and inflate, or you even want to like go through and say this here, invert that, and just kind of pull this over, now you're going to get a very creased, strong division between those. Now, if you're going to be like baking displacement maps, you might run into some issues doing that, but we're not going to be doing that, so who cares? So yeah, go through here, and that's where you get into your Bob Ross mood. Put in some happy little lumps. And let's go back to our clay. What we're using? Brush. Soft concrete with a, let's soften this alpha out even more. Let's grab like an alpha. Ooh, it's kind of a noisier alpha. It's not a bad thing necessarily. And you could also, in this instance, give this a shot too. We can go in here to masking, and we can do mask by cavity. And then I'll go ahead and mask our cavity out. Let's, it's going to get a little bit, it's going to mask adjust here. Mask blur it like 1. Okay, good. And then, let's blur that out a little bit more. Control tap to invert that. And then we can turn off view mask. So now you can hold down Alt. And you can go in here with like your inflate brush maybe. And kind of just, that's kind of gross. Kind of push those back. Or you can invert that. Turn off view mask. And then now those cavities, as we go through here and inflate, will kind of maintain those borders. Of course, the mask isn't that great. So I'll go through here and smooth that out just a bit. But that'll also give you a little bit of contrast in those areas. Food for thought, although that mask was kind of cruddy. But yeah, it's just a way to get those overlapping forms, so not everything looks like the Dynamesh, basically. You get those nice, this kind of stuff. A little bit deeper, a little bit more purposeful. So again, we'll go through and we'll carve in with our Damien standard, and then around that we'll use like clay buildup or inflate or our new friend, the soft concrete brush. And we can also kind of dictate, like maybe up here it's a little deeper grooves, and then as it gets toward the end, it kind of softens out and they're not quite so deep. These are kind of newer channels being dug. And these are all, we'll keep these parallel because that's kind of what I did see in that reference, was kind of just a bunch of parallel converging lines. We can kind of keep that same-ish. Again, brush, soft, BSF. And let's turn down that Z intensity quite a bit. It's a little much. I'll have a little bit of a softer touch up here. It's also probably good for like creature folds and creature skin and stuff like that too. It's very Carlos Huente look. There we go. And if I knew more Bob Ross quotes, I'd be saying them now, but off the top of my tired head, all I can think of is happy little trees. So yeah, in lieu of inflating everything, you can also do an overall inflate. You can just go to your deformation menu and just kind of inflate everything, or maybe I'll show you where that is, deformation. It's also, if you want to get here, sorry, you can also go in here and maybe even do like a twist or a taper. Oops, let's do this, delete lower. Let's do a twist. You can go through here with your deformers and kind of, maybe you want to kind of twist this a little bit more. Doesn't ruin anything. It's just your geometry. Then you can go back into reconstruct. So we just basically twisted that overall geometry to get a little bit more of a flow down it. And then let's go back in with our standard brush here. Turn off our lazy mouse. Turn down our Z intensity. And I'm just going to add a little bit of repeating undulation down here, like little deposits. Lower, lower, lower. Again, I'm just kind of looking at, I guess we can turn this back up. Some reference where, you know, you get these little bubbly bubbles of little limestone deposits, little mineral things going on here. It's looking very creaturey. That's all right. Creaturey enough. I do know Jared Carr. Yes. Yep, I worked with him at SOE on DC Universe Online, and then I think he went to ZeniMax, which makes sense. Yeah, up there. Yes. Boy, it's been a long time. Like, I never think I'm that old. I'm always like, oh, come on, give me a break. I've been making games for like, I don't know, a couple years now, and it's like, no, it's like 16 years, 17 years, and yeah, I went to Tiburon first out of college, went out to Ringling, and then went to SOE, worked with Jared Carr for a bit on Sony Online Entertainment for DC Universe Online, and then he went up to ZeniMax, and I went to Certain Affinity, which is where I am currently. And we're just going through here, and we're just adding some, whoa. Some of that, just a storytelling contrast here. Bumps and scrapes and scraggles and stuff like that. So yeah, we have the goopy body and then the hard shell up here. But yeah, small world. Okay, save the project file. That's okay. Luckily, whenever ZBrush crashes, you rarely, if ever, lose anything. It can be kind of a pain going back and grabbing it, but it takes you all of 2 seconds. So we'll go back to our recover tool here. The project also looked like the save too, but the tool's fine. And go back here, and so we need to finish up the hair on the legs, finish up the rest of these things here. There's nothing really new that we would need to talk about. These little tail things are kind of just, I guess they're a little bit more of a softer transition. They don't really have bends or knuckles in them, I should say. So I'm going to kind of leave that alone. Say auto masking topological, but I can still go through here and maybe make these a little bit more angular here, and so they're not so just loose. Also, it looks like dynamics on for these, and that would explain a bit, because I'm really pushing around not a lot of geometry here. So if I want a little bit more control, I can hit Control D to give it real subdivision history, and then as I go through, I get more polygons to kind of, again, just kind of, and you can pose these out depending on what your final shot's going to be. You can go through and you can evaluate, like we did before. You can just put on this to evaluate the silhouette completely, or even while you're working, up here underneath preferences, cam view, there's you can turn that on. Nope, cam view, thumbnail. Turn that on, and you can just have that silhouette just kind of working in the corner. So as you're working in the round, you're making sure everything reads as needed. But since we're kind of working off of a working result here, that's essentially what it is. So I might change the poses up on the arms a little bit and do that kind of stuff. But cool. I think that's all I got. unless anybody's got some last minute questions they want me to answer, I'm going to call it a day and go try to wake up a little bit more. I love starting my day out with just being tired and then trying to throw coffee on top of that to become a functioning human being. You know what I need to do? I need to work out. I need to hit the weights or do something. I don't want to jump immediately into just sitting in front of my computer all day. That's going to feel a little bit gross, I think. Thumbnail, cam view. Maybe work on this face a little bit. I mean, she's creepy. There's something about, you know, I can go through here. Let's say I have X symmetry turned on. I can go through here and I can just add just a little bit of, little touches of, you know, as the muscle and skin kind of work along here. Maybe define these lips a little bit more here. And this geometry isn't great. This is, I stole this from the tool, I think. Did I even, you know what, maybe I did ZBrush this, so I shouldn't necessarily blame any one thing in particular, but it's kind of fighting me a little bit, so maybe I would go through and, you know, I could also grab just another head. I do have some just base female heads I could bring in. I don't know that they're any better though, as far as usability goes, so. That's a little bit much. Let's do inflate. Inflate's a little bit of a softer touch, and also I'm working lower, so I'm going to drop my smooth intensity down just a bit. But yeah, this geometry's fighting me just a bit. Pump this up here. Define this a little bit more. Let's go back to a set level 3. Let's get a little bit lumpy. Go with a bigger brush here, and then hold down Shift and let go of Shift, so you can get that secondary algorithm here. Jilling says, is there a way to convert your Z-sphere so that a curve brush is applied to it? Yes. So there's a plugin for that. If you want the, so if you go through here, here's the manual way. So you got a Z-sphere here. Let's go into skin shader so you can see it a little bit better. So say, you know, scale this down, and then I want just a chain of these, right? So Q, go through here and just do whatever you want for your Z-sphere chain, whatever you want that to be. So this is the path I want it to follow. So you can always go through here, adaptive skin, density down, preview, density 1, preview. Why is it using classic skinning? Did I scale it down too much? Let's try that again. So usually when it does that, it says use classic skinning, and that's the preview you get. However, I'm not using classic skinning. G radial proximity dynamesh resolution. I don't even know what it's doing for my adaptive skin. That's weird. Okay, well, let's do this. Save as. I'm going to throw this into our streaming. Scene 8. Incremental saves. And when in doubt, restart ZBrush. We'll try this again. Basically, there's a script where you can, I'm not even sure where you can download it, but so we'll go through here, switch back out to our skin shader. Q, you can hold down shift if you want to make it the exact same, and then I'm just going to go through here with Q, just kind of put some stuff in here. So this is the path I want it to follow. And you should be able to go in here to adapt to skin, turn down density, turn down Dynamesh resolution, radial twist. This all looks fine. Now when I hit preview, this is what I was expecting. So through this, you can just grab curves off of this. If you say, make adaptive skin, when you go through here, you can say hold down Control Shift, and we can just literally get rid of these end caps here. Say delete hidden. And what we're really looking for is, like, if you go into ZModeler, polygroup, polyloop. So this here and this here. So you've got these two, and then that's the path your curve can follow. But even while you're here, you can go through here and just do, let's say, Control W. We'll do a polish by features, kind of smooth this out a little bit. And then we can just grab like this one, and then tap this one, say delete hidden, stroke, frame our polygroups border, and then you can go through here and brush, insert, curve, and put a, I don't know, bracelet along here, or whatever you want to do. There is a script though. You'll have to Google it. It's like Z-sphere curve script or something. Where basically root to tip, drag your Z-sphere out, and then hit this button, and it'll just put a little curve along there. It's a little bit faster, but you also have a little bit more control if you actually have geometry sitting in there. I assume brush size is not a factor in level of detail. Kind of depends on. Well, yeah, it kind of does. If you're talking about like when we were doing our creature sculpt, making your brush size. Sorry, my cord's in the way. Yeah, you want smaller details, make smaller brush. Unless I'm misunderstanding the question. There's another way to do that. Well, actually, you know what? Here. This is going to be kind of a long playlist, but it's well worth it, I think. Let's go to my station page, and then in here, where is it at? This one. So there's the ZBrush Summit 2018 I did. This is about, the controlling curves thing. So here's the presentation I did at ZBrush Summit.
Are you kidding me?
Kind of go through here, and I talk a lot about curves in this, and then also in my tutorial series here, there's 96 in here, and there's also a controlling curves somewhere in here. Let's see. Twist, precise twist control, hair curve control. Well, I think this will have a lot of it too. ArtStation, and then also on my YouTube channel. Controlling ZBrush curves. Oh, there it is. Controlling curves, curves helper. That's what it is. So here's another playlist. Sorry. And then curves helper is what you're looking for. Let's see if I have
polyloop. So this one. Grab these ones, delete hidden.
Maybe.
And then
maybe cross your fingers, everybody. Useful scripts. Curves helper. Oops, that page doesn't exist or is private. Google curves helper. I know some of these people. Yeah, curves helper is what you're looking for. Context and generating the skin. Was curious if that could have been the issue before you had to restart. Oh, that was my first thought too. Was like, because I shrank it down first because I don't like working. Z-spheres start at a unit scale. So if I turn on the floor here and turn on X or Z, you're going to see this is a ZBrush 1 unit scale, so it gets real big real fast. ZBrush likes to work in kind of this space. So if you stay at the native Z-sphere resolution, it gets pretty big pretty quick. So what I'll usually do is I'll be like, scale it down first and then go through here. And that was the only thing I could think of that was like a little bit different. But even then, it's like adaptive skin, density down, preview. Yeah, it should still work fine. I think I don't know. Maybe I was just in a bad state in that other one. Cool. Absolutely. Well, hopefully the content's somewhat useful. It can be a bit of a mess. We should have some new cool content coming up soon. I have some things in the kind of in the waiting room right now. I have a whole Houdini series if you guys want to watch that. That's not published yet because I haven't had a chance to get around to doing all the work for it. But if you go to my playlist here, there's a slightly new Houdini playlist. So the Houdini game dev tool set is one we did a long time ago, and then the Houdini auto game res is unlisted, but you guys can check that out if you want. It's a little cool little romp through Houdini and auto topology and stuff like that. So anyway, cool. Thanks everybody. Have fun for the rest of your week. And I'll try to stream more. I think I'm going to skip my Thursday live stream on my channel, but I'm going to stream sometime this month. So I'll get you. Sorry, Heaven. We're heading out, but cool. Thanks everybody. And I will